I'm still loud anyway, so. April, was there, if you could, if you wanted to provide everybody with that, the actual time or like, that would be great. Okay, thank you. All right, I'd like to call to order the executive committee meeting that was held in October. Unfortunately, due to the weather, we were unable to cover this in the November timeframe. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of that meeting? There's a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion's passed. And I believe that's all we had to do, so I closed the executive committee meeting. All right, now I'd like to open the actual board meeting. Mr. Butler, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so let's move on to the consent items. Are there any comments, questions, or concerns on the consent items? If none, do I have a motion to approve?
So move.
A motion, do I have a second?
Second.
A motion, second, all in favor say aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion's approved. Let's move on to the action items. Approve the executive committee recommendations on the Chief Executive Officer's annual evaluation for 2023. You have in your packet, hopefully you've had a chance to really review this. The good part of the information is that everyone who participated in the process of evaluating our executive, Beth, gave her rave reviews. I think she's done a fantastic job, and from what we received, it was an exemplary feat during this time that we were in. She did miss one goal, though. She missed one meeting, and she will never forget that, I'm sure.
Not your meeting.
No, not our meeting, but somebody else's meeting. So with that said, the executive committee met. We reviewed her salary. We reviewed goals for next year. As you can see in the salary recommendations, the executive committee believed that an adjustment of 10.2% was in line with what the staff received at the time. So that would bring executive increase from $200,000 to $220,004. Do I need to have that as a separate? Do I need to have that as a separate?
Yes, you should do your first motion under 3A, which is to accept the executive committee's recommendation regarding the review, and then the second motion would be to enter into Amendment 4.
Fantastic. Okay, so do I have a motion to accept the executive committee's review?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion's approved. Moving on then to the amendment, which is the salary itself. Do I have a motion to approve the increase in salary?
So move.
Motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion's approved. Okay. Then let's, I believe, we need to look at the goals. I'm sorry. As you can see in your packet, we've set new goals for FY23. I will tell you that we've asked Beth to be a bit more aggressive, and in some cases asked her to make adjustments to some of her goals to ensure that we're really focusing on taking that as extra steps. Specifically in the areas, Turbo Baby is going to be one of those, where we really want to see the movement of that particular project as quickly as we possibly can within reason. So, do we have any questions concerning the goals and objectives for FY23? Seeing no questions, do I have a motion to approve? I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign, motion's approved. Okay. All right, then let's move on to the, approve the strategic plan revisions, and Linda is going to lead us through that.
Good morning. Go ahead. Technical difficulties. There we go. Can you go back one? Oh. Okay. Thank you, Shannon. So you may recall that I was here in October presenting our progress year-to-date on our strategic plan goals. And at the time that I told you that when staff reviewed the progress, they also identified some strategies in the plan that needed to either be reviewed, revised, removed, or added. And we were very intentional about not rewriting the plan. We really just wanted to remove the strategies that were no longer feasible due to outside forces or due to internal prioritizing. And then we also only added big new strategies that have evolved since the plan's inception. So today, I'm going to present those proposed changes. Go ahead. So our first goal is early childhood development. And this was a new goal for us beginning in 2021. And the goal is that children 0 to 3 will meet appropriate physical, social, emotional, cognitive, and developmental milestones. Currently, JWB programming serves over 2,000 children in this age group. If you look to strategy 1.7, this is new. This addresses our work with grand families. You may recall from our last board meeting, Dr. Barbara Morrison-Rodriguez and Dr. Chin Fan presented data on the number of grandparents in Pinellas County solely responsible for their grandchildren. And the intent here is really to enhance services to grand families serving children or caring for children 0 to 3, using an approach similar to what we've done with our increased fatherhood efforts. Strategy 1.8 is our workforce stabilization effort. You know, prior to COVID, we knew that some of our funded agencies were struggling with staff turnover because of low wages. And then COVID hit, and those employees who already had low wages were then required to come into their workplace every day with a mask and really still struggling to have ends meet, and a lot of them just exited the workforce. So by early 2022, our funded programs were in such a workforce shortage crisis that it was really beginning to become noticeable to the level of quality and care delivered to our young children, specifically in the early learning settings. So we came to the board and sought approval, which we received for a workforce stabilization effort to begin to support these providers. Specifically in fiscal year 22, we focused on early childhood learning and our out-of-school time providers, as well as our healthy family providers. And then for fiscal year 23, we are focused on the rest of the portfolio. Strategy 1.9 is our competitive solicitation for new strategically aligned programs. Simply put, this was us asking the community, what needs are out there that we haven't picked up on yet? What are we missing? What don't we know? You guys are interacting with children and families daily. What's going on? So of course, it was very open-ended. It was a two-phase process. The letters of intent were submitted, and if they met specific criteria, those proposers were invited to make a return with a full proposal. We are going to hear the first set of recommendations from that process in the next action item by Karen Boges. Strategies 1.8 and 1.9 really cross our entire spectrum of funded agencies. So you're going to see these items repeated in school readiness, school success, prevention of child abuse and neglect, and strengthening community. Let's go ahead. Okay, so goal 2. Goal 2 is children served by JWB funded school readiness programs will enter kindergarten ready to learn. Strategy 2.2 has been recommended for removal. It was providing wrap services to children that were in the pilot between our Head Start provider in the county and Pinellas County Schools. That pilot is no longer continuing, so as that's not happening, we have no wrap services to provide. Strategy 2.3 and 2.4 are those we just saw in Goal 1 for workforce stabilization and the competitive solicitation. Goal 3 is our school success area. Children served by any JWB-funded school success program will show improvement or maintain performance in grades, attendance, behavior, and promotion to the next grade level. Again, the only two changes in this goal area are strategy 3.6 and 3.7, which is workforce stabilization and new strategically aligned programs. Goal 4, prevention of child abuse and neglect. Children served by any JWB-funded prevention of child abuse and neglect program will grow up and thrive in a safe and healthy environment. Again, the last two new strategies are carried forward from Goal 1. Goal 5, strengthening community. Children served by any JWB-funded strengthening community program will benefit from collective neighborhood initiatives driven by community leaders. And again, we've just added the two new ones at the end. And then finally, organizational capacity. JWB will have a skilled and diverse workforce powered by robust technology to enhance the well-being of children and families. So you'll see in strategy 6.4, this really deals with data collection and our data analysis. And we had realized that we were a little too limiting in listing just 4 areas that we would be analyzing. We analyze a lot more with respect to the data we receive from our agencies, so we expanded the definition to really meet what we're doing and use the phrase opportunity risk factors because that aligns with our Child Opportunity Index work. Strategy 6.4, in 2021, we decided to no longer pursue COA accreditation, really, so that we could focus on other priorities. And then finally, strategy 6.6, we're recommending for removal because it was already embedded in the work of some other strategies, specifically within the strengthening community area for collective impact and our collaborative work. And therefore, we really felt like it was redundant, so we're recommending removal of strategy 6.6. So that completes my review of the recommended changes for your approval for the JWB 2021-2025 strategic plan. Are there any questions?
Seeing no questions, do I have a motion to approve?
Move approval.
I'll
Have a
second the
motion?
motion, Sarah Muller.
I have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion's approved. Moving on to item C, approve the award of new strategically aligned programs, early learning, early childhood development, prevention of child abuse and neglect, strengthening communities. Laura Kruk, and Beth, would you like to lead us through this?
Thank you. Good morning. Yes, we're here today to approve the award for the new strategically aligned programs, and specifically today, it's for the early childhood development, the prevention of child abuse and neglect, referred to as PCAN, and strengthening communities. So to give you a little history and background, I know we have a new board member with us today, but this ties into the strategic plan that Linda just reviewed. Under strategy 5.5 of our new strategic plan, it reads to develop capacity to engage community members as active partners to strengthen the lives of community, county children, and families. And to remind you, back in February of 2022, in support of the strategy, we released a solicitation for these new alliances, for these 3 programs. And then we've got the other 2 programs that are in process relative to going through the same exercise. The purpose of the competitive solicitation was to address the unmet needs in Pinellas County for the children and families. And specifically, we were looking at increasing efficiencies, promoting inclusion of community partners, and to help indicate and identify where the needs are so we could best use the resources of Juvenile Welfare Board. The solicitation was in 2 phases. Initially, it was sent out as a letter of intent, an LOI, and the reason behind that was we wanted to streamline the process, eliminate excessive time between both our staff and the agency's staff. And as a result, we had 30 submissions of the letter of intent. Of the 30 submissions, 15 were selected to ask to submit an RFP. So that did alleviate a lot of, if we had gotten 30 RFPs, it would have been quite a bit more work. So of the 15 RFPs that we received, we invited 15, 13 responded, and we reviewed the 13, and that was back in August of 2022. We had one of the 13 that did not meet the minimum requirements, and so the 12 of them moved forward to the evaluation teams. In your board agenda packet, you've got the information regarding the teams and who was on the teams. We had a separate team for each one of these strategic areas. We had a community involvement person. We had at least one executive team member, and as well as some experts or those with content expertise within the organization also served on those evaluation committees. The scoring was ranked in a variety of areas, as you can see, regarding the merits of the program, 25%. Organizational capacity and financial stability was given a weight of 25%. Needs, justification, and contribution to the strategic goal was a 20% weight. Evaluation and outcomes was 20%, and reasonableness of cost was a 10%, which came out with 100% scoring. Those that met a 65 average score in the evaluation team were moved forward for evaluation and consideration to the executive team. This was presented to the executive team, and just to remind you that since we're in the middle of a fiscal year, the agencies were asked to submit 2 budgets. So we had one budget, which would be effective in our fiscal year, so that would start in March 1st, so from March to September, and then the second budget was for a full 12 months in the subsequent year. I just point that out because we had to kind of juggle the different funds, and we have budgeted in the fiscal 23 year. We had budgeted $5 million in our future programming. Of that portion, the 3 programs that we're addressing today, our budget was $3,333,333. And the next year's budget, of course, that's just a forecast right now. So in the subsequent years, so fiscal 24, we've got a $5 million forecast for those areas, and we'll speak about that in a minute. So the evaluation team reviewed all of these 65 programs that had met that criteria, and they are recommending that the top 10 proposals would move forward for approval for today. Those ranged anywhere in scoring from 95.6 on the high end of the scoring to a 70.67. So that kind of gives you an idea of the range. And again, the dollar amounts would be $3,333,333. And then for the subsequent year, we are asking for the amount to be over the $5 million. So that came to 5.673,511. Keep in mind that in our 24 forecast, we did have earmarked $1 million for the QUELI, and we can be able to use that amount to cover the overage. We want the programs to be successful, so we wanted to get a stub period budget as well as the budget for the next year. I'll let Beth talk to you a little bit more about the programs, but I did also want to point out that one of the recommendations for today is as we go through the evaluation, I take a look at the agency's financial stability. I take a look at their audited financial statements, I take a look at their cash flow needs, and I had identified 2 programs that I felt like they would fall under the cash advance policy that we have. So we have a policy whereby, because we're an expense reimbursement, cost reimbursement type of program, the agency has to expend the funds first and they submit for reimbursement. It's not like we give them the money in advance. So we had identified 2 agencies that we felt could fall under our policy. To remind you what our policy is, our policy says that an agency can receive or request in advance up to 25% of their annual allocation, not to exceed $250,000. In this case, we have 2 agencies that I recommended a cash advance. One is a new agency with us, the other one is an existing agency. So when you crunched out the numbers, we are recommending that they get the 25% cash advance because, again, we want the program to be successful, we want the agency to be successful, and then they would cap out as we move down the year. So I just wanted to point that out, but I'll let Beth talk to you a little bit about
I'm
the
glad you did that.
programs, because
Because you're in better shape to do that than I am. You made those determinations. Well, Laura really has walked through the entire process and how we got to the recommendation, or the recommendations for you. The only thing that I wanted to touch on, and then I know I'm surrounded by expertise, so that if there are questions, I will probably refer it to somebody who knows a lot more than I do. But I would just say it was an incredibly robust process. It was a very thoughtful process, and the programs that we're recommending are everything from innovative programs for our community that we've not seen here before, to significant expansions of programs that have been very successful, and either of those made a lot of sense. A key here, I think, is that, as Laura mentioned, in the first part of this process, the letter of intent portion, we really were able to assure that the programs that we asked to provide full proposals were strategic, with what they described to us in the first pass in the LOI, were strategically aligned, so that, as Laura said, we didn't waste their time and our time in looking through proposals that were not strategically aligned. And I'd remind the board that the board approved this you've approved it multiple times, the process and the dollars. You approved the budget, you approved the release of the request for the release of the LOI, the release of the RFP. And so this is not the first time you've seen it or heard from it. As Laura mentioned, there are 10 programs that we're recommending for approval. The first pass was to say we weren't going to fund anything below the 65 points in scoring. But then the other was, as you have seen us do in the capital RFAs, we say we've got X amount of money and we fund the top scoring program, and we go down and we go down until we don't have money. And so when we did that, it's always the case, it would be a statistical rarity for it to be otherwise, that there's somebody that's on the cusp, that there aren't enough dollars to fully fund that last program, but there may be enough to partially fund that. And we've handled that in different ways, in ways that we thought made sense. In this case, Directions for a Living program, Together We Rise, was the program that was in that spot. And I think there were concerns raised about just the total dollar amount. It was about $4 million on an annualized basis. That's a lot, particularly relative to this entire pool. But I would also say that the nature of its program, which is intensive services in the prevention of child abuse and neglect area, by their very nature, are very expensive on a per participant basis or in the aggregate. As I mentioned to Chief Milliken, it's these are intensive issues. I don't want to overuse this analogy, but it would be if we did a thin down program, it would be a little like bringing a family's water hose to a 3-alarm fire. There's no point. You either you need to be in there and do the intensive services to really make a difference. So what we did do, though, is we looked and said that there were 10 teams that Directions was proposing. 3 of those were for the category of families and children that were safe but at high risk. And then 7 of the teams were unsafe, and there are more descriptors after that. That seemed to me to be a real dividing line to keep us in our lane, the Juvenile Welfare Board in our lane. And that is that prevention of child abuse is one of our core strategic goal areas. But we try to be really careful not to get into the child welfare system. For instance, there might be a program or a need to support foster care children or families in a certain way. And it might have great merit, but that's not our lane. We stay, before that point. But this has been that the availability of intensive services for CPIs when they're in a home and dealing with a family has been expressed as a need through the Community Alliance, which includes FSS, the lead agency for our area. So I participate in that. I chair that actually for Pinellas County, and so was well aware that that's a true need as expressed in a lot of different places. So that's how we got to where we are. The other thing I would add about the fiscal year 24 amount, as Laura mentioned, we had $1 million projected or forecast in fiscal year 24 for QELI. We're not saying we're not doing it. In fact, one of the programs here is our clubs, and it's a bit over $800,000 for a QELI program at Happy Workers in South St. Pete. So, there's that 800,000, and we had set aside, again, forecast, not budgeted, but forecast in fiscal year 24 for a QELI. So we felt comfortable proposing to you approval of these programs, which would be a cost of the $3,333,333 for fiscal year 23. And while you're not approving the fiscal year 24 budget, we always bring you that. You obviously deserve to know what it is we're asking you to commit to. So I'll end on that note, be open for questions or comments.
Are there any questions?
We've been working at this for quite some time. We've been informed. We've been being informed along with the board staff, all of the work that went into this. Good work, and I am very pleased with the, due diligence that has been spent to come to the bottom line for both this fiscal year and next fiscal year, and I appreciate that you've worked in advance to know what the number will look like for the next fiscal year. So again, recognition for a long-term project that finally is ready to bloom, and very, very, very grateful for that. Thank you. Thanks.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion approved. Thank you. Susan said it well. All right, let's move on to action item D, approval of approve St. Petersburg College Early Childhood Education Support Program. Karen Burgess.
Good morning, Karen Bogus, Chief Program Officer. I'm going to read the recommended action. Approve sole source and $75,233 to St. Petersburg College for the Early Childhood Education Support Program. Budget amendment from future programming to St. Petersburg College Early Childhood Education Support Program. And to give a little bit of background, just this week I participated on a call hosted by the United Way called a Child Care Crisis Community Event. And we have the executive or the CEO of our Early Learning Coalition, Lindsay Carson, in the room as well to also help answer any questions we have. The child care workforce on this call, it was discussed, has been set back by the pandemic 20 years. The workforce shortage is impacting. We have closed classrooms. We have less capacity to serve children. And what was discussed on the call is there is a desire for higher pay and less taxing work. Well, anybody who is in the childcare business and has had 8 toddlers in one classroom knows that that's almost impossible to make it less taxing work. And over this last year, we've invested, as you heard earlier, in our strategic plan, workforce stabilization, and we're just seeing and hearing our first reports are coming in from the first quarter of that. So we are hearing some positive impact, but again, this is going to take some time, and it's not just about recruiting staff, it's also about sustaining them. So we have a program that we fund scholarships for St. Pete, for students, adult learners, to attend St. Pete College for their early childhood studies. And one of the things in the last year talking with St. Pete College is that some of the challenges of adult learners going back into the classroom. So this program is to support the students in their academics. So sometimes it may be individual tutoring sessions or group tutoring sessions, academic counseling, navigating all of this, as well as the program will be out there recruiting because we really do need a qualified and skilled workforce. And so this is part of our, would be part of our investment to address this. There are about 14 to 25 students that attend in a semester. We do see some lower numbers over the summer. And of course, we just talked about it as part of JWB's strategic plan. I'm open for any questions.
Are there any questions? This is going awfully quick today, which is really good. Hopefully that we're all, they read their materials exactly what it is. Seeing no questions, do I have a motion to approve?
Move approval to approve the St. Petersburg College Early Childhood Support.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion's approved.
Thank you.
Now, let's move on to the approved reductions in Early Learning Coalition School Readiness Plus allocations.
Yes, so I will read the recommended action. Approve reduction of $460,000 to the Early Learning Coalition School Readiness Plus fiscal year 23 allocation. Budget amendment from Early Learning Coalition School Readiness Plus to unassigned fund balance. And the School Readiness Plus program was created to help support families needing childcare and early learning that were between meeting the eligibility of our state early learning school readiness programs and families who were at or below 300% of the poverty level. One of the components of this contract and program was funding wrap services at 3 of our elementary schools and within 6 classrooms. And that contract has ended. So we have been in discussions with our Early Learning Coalition, and they expressed that they would not be able to use that $460,000 within the School Readiness Plus. They are seeing an overall decline in families requesting services. So again, Lindsay Carson, the CEO of ELC, is here if we have any specific questions on that. But we would be requesting this reduction. In addition, what we would be looking at, JWB team here, is workforce stabilization, our other RFP that's in process, as well as the Grand Family Potential Services, and we would be coming back to all of you with a well-defined plan in the future.
Do you have any questions?
So my assumption is if the situation changed, we would be in a ready position to make the appropriate action to be sure that those wrap services were funded if the situation changed.
Yes.
The answer was yes, I assume.
Yes, I'm sorry, yes.
All right, and the $460,000 goes back into the general fund?
The unfund balance.
Unfund balance. It's a lot of money going back in. That was budgeted. And I know we just made some reductions in the areas of, the trim, during the trim hearing, we reduced the rates to the families. I guess one thing I would ask the board to consider is to have the staff and leadership go back and look at if there are areas within the budget that could use additional funds in support of this. You just mentioned a couple as an example. and come back to us in the either next board meeting or the board meeting after that with some recommendations on how well or how those funds could be used in support of other programs that may have been underfunded, may not have been, but could be used to accelerate the value to the community. So I ask that the board consider that if that would be acceptable to you.
I think we just heard the presentation about the new programs being funded, and I'm not going back quickly to see if some were unfunded, or should I say, underfunded for what the request was. And so that might be a quick place to look for spending some additional dollars that wouldn't necessarily need a tremendous amount of staff, additional work. So I just put that out there as a suggestion.
And I would just say, I appreciate the flexibility that you all are sort of signaling that we can come back to you, whether it's, as Karen mentioned, workforce stabilization, until we get into, we budget an amount, but until we get into it, we're not sure what the dollar amount of total good proposals are. We're not going to come to you to spend the money if they're not good proposals. Turbo babies, most of our budget is set by July, and then when we set some goals for the fiscal year 23, your chair nudged me harder to see to push turbo babies out to a greater degree. And we plan to do that, but there probably will be some extra dollars as we look to do that. So there, we're not going to go back and say, oh, gee, we have money, what can we spend it on? But there are some, as Ms. Ralston just said, some things thoughtfully that we may be able to bring forward.
Superintendent.
Thank you. Just for the knowledge of the public, the school district and Head Start thought that project was successful. But the agreement that we went into with Head Start was under a different leader. New leadership came in and wanted to do some other things, and that's fine. I think the concern from the school district side and what we should be concerned from the public is the idea that the ELC has seen a decline in families enrolling and accessing these services. There's probably no greater indicator of school success than your readiness for school. And so as we consider what to do with that balance and consider those options, I hope that we look at ways to engage and get more students in those programs. In our case, the 3 schools were Woodlawn, High Point, and Lakeview Fundamental. We just opened up more VPK classrooms in those schools and filled them, but we'd much rather have the community doing that work than the K-12 school district, or certainly being a partner in it. So as we consider those things, I'd love us to see ways to get more students into those programs.
Any other comments or questions? Assuming that we don't need a motion on this, we do? Okay, so,
Just a motion to accept the funds and reallocate them
Oh.
to the fund balance.
okay. So do I have a motion to accept the funds and move them back into the fund balance?
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign, so it's been approved.
Thank you.
As far as asking having the board ask the staff to move forward, we don't need a motion on that, right? Okay, great. Okay, thank you. All right, let's move on to the presentations. Turbo Babies Early Childhood Public Awareness Campaign update. April?
Good morning. So you'll hear a lot of race-themed analogies as I go through, so forgive me, but starting with, we are supercharged and very excited to be here today. Mrs. Ralston, you said we're ready to bloom. I think for this campaign, we are revving up our engines and heading down the racetrack, and so we're excited to share our progress for Turbo Babies, which is a multi-year early childhood awareness public service campaign. And Turbo Babies represents that rapid pace that children birth to 3 develop and grow. There are 3 main talking points, key messages, if you will. The campaign promotes early connections, nurtures a baby's drive to learn, and of course supports parents and other caregivers as their child's first and best teachers. And you'll see this throughout our materials, throughout the website, as we'll demo later today. It is part of our 5-year strategic plan, and it is a multifaceted approach with 2 main goals. And this, it sounds easy, but the first goal is to ensure the principles of early childhood development are easily understood by our target audience, moms, dads, grandparents, relatives, other caregivers. So really, we're trying to take early brain science and make it consumable and digestible to all. And then our second goal is we want to ensure children birth to 3 are on track developmentally. And I would say it's also an opportunity as we engage early. Superintendent Hendrick, when you said promoting and trying to engage families to get whether engaged more in early learning opportunities and or in home visiting services. So I think by touching them early, we have that opportunity to share those resources as well. The campaign includes multiple components. We always say it's not just media marketing, but key messaging, grassroots outreach, training, education, procurement, budgeting, evaluation, feedback loops, strategic partnership engagement, and much more. Again, a multifaceted approach. As it goes, it takes a village. And I'd like to start by saying we've been blessed with a dedicated, smart, and passionate group of JWB staff. Many are in the room today who are part of an internal planning team. And I'd just like you to stand up and be recognized. Shout outs to those that aren't in the room. Go ahead and stand up as a group, and then I'm going to say a few things about you. Cheryl, Gail, come on, Diana. Very good, thank you. And Jesse's already standing, wonderful, thank you. So Dr. Gail Ingram and Cheryl Miller have been involved from the very beginning. They were part of our evaluation team for Vista Communications. They have decades of experience in early childhood development and really have helped us inform the campaign content and the materials, and they'll be intimately involved in our outreach and our engagement as we move forward. Fun fact, Cheryl pointed out that there was a foreshadowing of the Turbo Babies campaign way back in December of 2019 when Dr. Jamie McHale came before this board and shared his compelling presentation on early brain development. Do you remember what he said? Anybody? And I quote, "During the first 18 months of life, superhighways are paved in a baby's brain, pathways that will last a lifetime." So again, now here we are. That is one of our key turbo facts for our campaign, and I hope, Dr. McHale, you're listening out there. But that is part of our race theme campaign. Also vital to the role of Turbo Babies is our procurement unit led by Diana Caro. And you'll hear more in a moment about the efforts underway related to procurement and budgeting. Plus, you have a few tangible items at your seats and around the room. And we'll be demoing the microsite here in a moment as well. Also on our planning team, Jennifer Dodd, who's part of our communications team. She's an excellent editor and a creative force. She's my right-hand person and on all things marketing and media. Jesse Strong. Jesse's a gem. He is new to JWB, relatively speaking, with a strong background in program evaluation and early childhood development, and even a little background in communications. I whisper that. Plus, he's a dad to young children himself, so he's constantly coming to us with new, fresh ideas, and I love his energy, and he will be lending his expertise as we implement our success measurement plan. And Yaritas Garcia, she couldn't be with us today, but she and her community engagement advocates are really going to help us bridge to the community through leveraging their partnerships with our community councils. Plus, Yaritas is a certified Spanish translator, and she's eager to help us ensure that our messages and our materials are translated and accessible to our Spanish-only speaking families, which we will be working on. So our timeline. Starting with Q1, what have we been up to? We talked about our planning team. We've been meeting weekly and sometimes more often than that. We have our website that is launched, It's really deemed a microsite, which really all that means it's a limited number of pages and it's not quite as dynamic as a regular website. But it has been thoroughly audited for content, functionality, and Colleen ADA compliance, which is really important. And we've added a few enhancements to its content and its design. And again, we'll demo that for you shortly. As it relates to procurement, the campaign has many components and nuances, from researching vendors' specs and prototypes to ensuring we have the highest quality items at the most cost-effective price, to exploring options for storage and logistics, and then determining quantities and order timelines. So we look forward to coming back before this board to gain approval as a vendor or vendors are selected for some of our higher cost procurements. And thank you, Beth, for pointing out that we may also need some budget enhancements as we play this out. Thank you. Efforts to engage strategic partnerships are also well underway. And one of the questions the board asked early on was, how do we plan to engage and reach families who are not currently served by JWB, those who would likely benefit most from this campaign? And we're excited today to announce that we will be partnering with EverHealth. Joe Santini is with us as one of our targeted strategic touch points of the campaign. And why is this important? EverHealth's mission is to provide quality healthcare for all. And as a federally funded healthcare system, they serve individuals with Medicaid and who are underinsured or uninsured. And they have OB and pediatric practices countywide. So they are serving our target audience for this campaign. Moreover, in terms of reach, they serve about a quarter of all children 0 to 3. So there's approximately 24,000 children in Pinellas County, 0 to 3. They serve about 6,000 of those. So we will have a targeted place where we can kind of study and evaluate, track, and have feedback loops built in, and also do training for this campaign. And as a campaign partner, they have agreed to deliver face-to-face education with families at their wellness checkup visits. And also that education will be aligned with our campaign. And they will also distribute our pit crew bags, the bags that you have there with you. They'll be able to track to make sure we don't have duplication and also ensure that we're handing them out with that face-to-face education. And Joe is Director of Service Lines with EverHealth. And in addition, Dr. Sarah Kelly, who is their Assistant Medical Director of Pediatrics, is totally on board and excited. We've had several meetings. It will serve as a subject matter expert, along with our other 0 to 3 subject matter experts, and as a campaign spokesperson for turbo babies when needed. And we'll be working with Joe and his team to devise a plan to train their pediatricians and medical teams, track parent education and distribution of bags, and report on partnership data. So thank you very much, Joe. Another key partner and touch point is Healthy Start Coalition, and I see Mary Jo and team with us today. Through their coordinated intake and referral unit, they reach thousands of pregnant and birthing parents each year. For those who decline home visiting services, and I think it's roughly, Mary Jo, 50%, give or take, they send out targeted mailers to all those families. So they reach those families, and they have graciously agreed to include our Turbo Babies materials and items in those mailers. So we'll be able to reach those families as well. Plus, I'm sure there's a number of other partnership opportunities that we'll be able to partner with and coordinate. We've met with Great Explorations Children's Museum, and they do have a 0 to 2 tot program, and they also have childcare. And there are a lot of synergies and partnership opportunities with Great X. We're excited for that. And multiple community agencies in the 0 to 3 space, many that we already fund, have already signed on to be campaign champions. We'll lean heavily on Lindsay and folks at Early Learning Coalition, and then our home visiting programs as well. So now that we have our campaign leave-behinds with the folders, we'll be hitting the pavement, going out, and meeting with other potential partners, Mr. Mercurak, Becca, and others in the coming weeks. So that's all in Q1, that's what we're doing. Q2, starting the first of the year. It's the exciting part. That's when we're going to be publicly announcing the campaign. The media relations will roll out, and the campaign will, in essence, roll out. You'll see it, hear it, see it in the community. Specifically, we plan to publicly announce the Turbo Babies campaign at this year's JWB Children's Summit on January 27th. Our chair will have that pleasure. Excuse me. This will be followed by an intensive and dynamic media relations plan throughout the month of February and beyond, plus a series of family-friendly community events across the county starting in March. For example, we'll be joining EverHealth during their Family Wellness Day on March 25th. They're right across the corner or right across the street from here. That will take care of mid-family, and we'll have a strong presence there. Then we'll work with our community councils and our 0 to 3 partners to host similar events in North and South County as well. And we hope to have a presence at this year's Grand Prix, if all things work out, some type of presence. So as we said, this is a multi-year, multifaceted campaign. We're excited for all the prospects, month to month, year to year, and partner by partner. So at this time, I just wanted to point out what you have at your tables, at your seats, and across the room. So you're just seeing some of the prototypes. So the challenge always is, before we want to order in bulk, 5,000 plus, we want to see and touch and feel and test out some of the items. And so, but that comes with a cost because we're ordering small quantities, and then which vendors are we going to choose? So these are just some examples of what would go in the Turbo Baby Pit Crew bag. And as a reminder, who the pit crew is, just as a race car driver needs a pit crew to get to the finish line, the pit crew are parents and caregivers and all of you, all of us, that help a child 0 to 3 succeed. And in that bag, we're going to have some type of educational toy that will be multifunctional 0 to 3. And then we will have onesie or a t-shirt, depending on the age. The bags will be labeled 0 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3. As we go to our website, you'll see all of our activities, everything is by age range, 0 to 1. So we have these lovely little, and Mr. Bartlett, I put 2 sizes in your bag, so I wasn't sure. I know that you have a little one, grandchild, so you have a couple different options in your bag of a onesie. And then we will have some other items. We will have some magnets. We will have some activity cards on a ring. We will probably have an embroidered ball cap that can be for the parent to wear, the caregiver to wear, and then some other collateral materials inside as well. Oh, and a book. We have books. Although when we ordered the books, see, this is another reason we do prototypes. Cheryl, it looked really big on the page. It's really small, but we ordered these, and it's a lovely book, car-themed, car and truck-themed. So again, we will look for items throughout the campaign, if they can be related back to the race theme in the campaign. And in your folders, Love the folder has our elevator speech on the back, QR codes you'll see on everything, the posters and signs across the room. The campaign guide in here is really a standalone item that we'll use in training all of our partners. And inside it is everything from our key messaging to our turbo facts, our turbo tips, and we're going to talk more about the turbo tips as we go through the website, but you'll see the turbo tips on practically everything that we provide for families. And then it's really the full guide for anybody who is supporting the campaign. And then we have the full social media toolkit up on the website. And then a brochure, which I know when we met Ms. Malo that you talked about the racetrack pulling out. So the brochure pulls out to a racetrack, and as you go around for the different age ranges, you have activity ideas. And then you see the racetrack behind Linda in the back of the room. And we'll have these types of posters in our doctor's offices and in partners and early learning centers with rack cards that they can take with them. Thank you for that idea. It came to life. Wonderful. And if there aren't any questions, at this time we're going to go ahead and demo the microsite. Jen's going to help me. So I just wanted to point out a few things. There are some colors that are co-branded with JWB, our bright oranges and yellows and blues, and then we've added in like 100 other colors, primary colors as well. Turbo Babies is one of the most challenging logos, by the way, if you want to get something silk printed, silk screen printed. There are just so many colors, but it's a very fun site. There are racetrack motifs throughout and the race theme, callbacks to the theme throughout. It's a very fun and high energy site. The hero images and all the images on the site, you pretty much won't see the child looking at you because they're looking at the parent or caregiver. The parent and caregiver and child are engaged with each other, doing an activity or just cuddling and bonding and loving. And that's what we really loved. At the top, we have our logo, and at the far right, fueled by JWB. So Superintendent Hendrick, you had asked, where's the JWB logo? Well, it is on everything now, and you will see, every time you see our mark, it will say fueled by JWB. So very clean, bright colors. Our call out is supercharge everyday moments, a callback to the fact that it doesn't take a lot of time, connections and activities can happen during everyday moments to give baby a great start at life. And then that key fact, 80% of brain growth happens in baby's first 1,000 days. The racetrack moves us down the page to our key messaging, and as we move down the page, you will see our turbo tips. And the tips are really grounded in research and literature. You'll see them whether it's through the University of Chicago, the University of Florida. They all have their different tips, if you will. But they're all grounded in research that supports developmental milestones and parent interaction and communication. So the first one is tune in. Tune in to baby's communication cues and react and respond. This is where the cuddling, the bonding, and the nurturing happens. And just really being present and tuned in, putting the devices down, etc. Talk and repeat. And talk means all things. Talk, read, sing, count, and repeat. Babies love repetition, and they learn from repetition. So that is the second tip, talk and repeat. Take turns. Babies don't have words yet, but they have a lot to say. So they are communicating through their coos and their cries and their gestures and their giggles and their smiles. And so take turns, stop for a moment, talk, and then kind of like volley back and forth, allow baby to respond and take turns. And then take time. Find those everyday moments, whether it's diaper changes, mealtime, bedtime, bath time, shopping, traveling, etc. Take time to practice all these other tips. And then as we move down the page here and then back up at the top, you can get to the activities. The target audience for this website, by and large, are parents and caregivers, right? We do have a section for partners and a partner toolkit, but everything on here is worded for you and your baby. It's really intentional that, you know, my baby is 0 to 1, 1 to 2, and when Jen mouses over the cars, they move, so there's a lot of movement going on. And we're going to show you a couple of those pages here in a moment. Down the page, you can join the PIT crew. Become a member of the PIT crew, sign up for the newsletter, sign up for emails, learn about community events. Parents can even enter a birth date and month and receive free gifts on their baby's birthdays. So back up to the top, our About page really is your typical About page. Again, a lot of our key messaging on this page. Again, you'll notice the hero image with mom and baby interacting. As you move down the page, we have our turbo facts. These are those facts that we want families to know. And this was a statement from Beth, learning begins at birth. And I think, I don't want to paraphrase, but I think something to the effect of if they don't learn anything else, we want everybody to learn that or understand that learning begins at birth. And then we have many of our turbo facts there and a call out to what it means to be part of the PIT crew and early connections. On almost every page, you'll see the turbo tips repeated. We have images. Eventually, we'll have video content up as well. And then further down the page are some of our campaign champions. We're adding new ones every day. And we hope to have this whole page filled endlessly down to the bottom. So if we go to the activities up at the top, and we go to 0 to 1, you can get there this way as well. And what we've done is we have taken all the developmental milestones for that age range and worked really hard to look at activities that would help develop those milestones, help a baby develop. So for example, tummy time. And these are just simple ideas that parents can do anytime. Tummy time, tracking time, having their eyes follow an object. And then we have, what is that one, Jen? Cuddle time. Okay, so cuddling with baby and nurturing and bonding. And then a number of other different activities, 15 in total for each age range. And then they can print the activity list, and we'll have the cards in the bags for them as well. And then down at the very bottom of the page are the milestones. These came directly from the American Academy of Pediatrics and CDC. And so that is the source. And these are all those developmental milestones and checkup times for babies. And so again, while we're not the primary source, we're providing the information. If we go to we're just going to quickly go to the other pages. So if we go to 1 to 2, you'll just see different activities. We won't spend time going through all of them. There's just 1 or 2 maybe on the page. Diaper time. We had talked before about doing sports play-by-plays with babies during diaper time, etc. And so if we go on to 2 to 3 page, we have 15 activities on each page. And things like choice time, giving the baby, as they're getting a little older, a choice between 2 options. And then all the way down, all of the pages again have our milestones at the bottom. So then if we move to our resource page, I think what I'd like to just say about the resource page is back to what our superintendent had said. We tried to place primary resources on this page. We didn't want to be another resource and referral site, but we put primary resources on here that would be pertinent to parents, caregivers 0 to 3. So for example, Healthy Start does a wonderful manual in English and Spanish. Thrive by 5 has a wonderful resource center on their website. Childcare for ELC and all the referrals that we can under the space of school readiness. Developmental screenings and checklists, very important, and we have those resources up here. Infant and Family Needs, our Family Services Initiative, Beds for Babies. And food and nutrition, I know we have St. Pete Free Clinic here, their Find a Pantry, and then others, Health and Wellness, EverHealth, and our Children's Mental Health Initiative, and our home visiting and safety resources on this page as well. Our partner page, and it's very colorful, right? It grabs your attention, clean, colorful. Our partner toolkit page is where you can connect and get the key messaging, the campaign guide, our social media toolkit with all the graphics and pre-made social media posts. And you can also request campaign materials here. And then finally, our Join Our Pit Crew page. And the Join Our Pit Crew page, you can select as a parent or caregiver, fill out the form, or a partner, a community partner or champion. And we have all of the language calling on here, the disclaimer language, to make sure we're compliant. So we will be adding to this site a community and news page. We will likely add a survey and QR code as well so we can track some data. And then, of course, I had mentioned we wanted to add video content as well. Any questions about the rollout of Turbo Babies, next steps, the website, materials, anything?
I think you've done an amazing job. It's very thorough, and I think you hit all the right points. There's no question about it. You mentioned about, what do we remember from the presentation, and you hit it right in. And what I remember from the presentation was the 80% of the brain being developed in in the first 3 years. That to me was the issue, right, that needed to be addressed. So I think you've done a great job. The one question I do have, and I was trying to think of the right words for it, and it's, I first came up with, are there any, roadblocks, or are there any, where are you at? But it's really, are there any detours that are going to cause you to slow up a little bit? What are they? And then what can we do about helping change those detours into straightaways?
Sure. No, that's a great question. I think when you launch any new program or any new campaign, sometimes you don't know what you don't know, but we do know right now that we're following kind of the path of our welcome baby bags, and we know that that is a heavy lift in terms of timing procurements, shipments, getting the best cost, getting the best items, juggling all of that with logistics and putting the bags together, and where do we store them. We're far ahead of the game because we have our partner with EverHelp, and they have storage and they have offered, and that's what we're trying to do right now, is identify that pathway to, once we order the item, where does it go and how does it get to the family? So, and then just making sure that we build in, bringing on Jesse early, so we bring, have those success measurements in place to start, and looking at those things that we can track and we can report back on. And then just being open to pivot, and having feedback loops with families. So if they don't like the book, then we can pivot and do a different book. Being open to some of that, and along the way. I don't know if any of my planning team wants to add to that, but I think those would be, in terms of like partners, everybody's excited. I haven't reached out to one that has said, no, you can't have my logo, or no, I don't want to be involved at some level. It's just going to take a lot of time and staff power, because you want to train them on it. I just did a Sleep Baby Safely training on Monday with a bunch of folks from the health department, and it's constant. So, a staff turnover, you have to train again. And so, it was wonderful, it was energizing, but it was also exhausting, because that in 6 months you need to do it again, and in 6 months you need to do it again. And so I think training all of our partners and making sure that they are delivering the message that's consistent with the campaign. They're not just handing out items, but they're really having those intentional face-to-face conversations and pacing ourselves. This is year one, or year 1.5. Pacing ourselves so that we can fold in new things for year 2, 3, and 4. I don't know, Beth or Linda, or if you want to add.
I just wanted to say, wow. I think, as I looked across the room, that's what I read in a lot of faces, April. And I know this campaign is not only about you. There are a whole lot of folks who have worked mightily to bring us to this point, and the board's support has been amazing. And this clearly would not have occurred without the full board support, and particularly Mr. McCurrick's support. And I would just say nudging, where are we, and can we move faster? And he's right, because every day there's a baby born that we want to get to. But I do want to thank April for her leadership in this very complex, and you can tell, multi-layered campaign that's designed not just to say, check the box, we did a campaign, but to actually work.
Thank you, Beth. Okay.
Yeah, I think, simply stated, we all have expectations of different projects, and I think this one, you exceeded any expectations, at least speaking for myself, that could have come out today with your presentation. So thank you, and thank the team.
Thank you, Mrs. Ralston.
I also, QSA, really awesome work. I'm excited about this. I am super pumped about this program. As you know, kids are really a big thing on my agenda, and always have been through my 31 years in my career. So this is a really exciting program. Great work to you and your staff. Really great work, and I'm really pumped up to see this happen.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you. Okay.
This is just as one last thing. I've seen the board get excited about a lot of things over the last 7 to 9 years, I think. But this one seems to be the one that's really caught everybody's attention the most. And I think it's going to be done right, which you've got everything in the right direction to do that. Done right, we can impact one major portion of all the other elements that we are trying to work on. You know, we talk about school readiness, you talk about VPK, you talk about early learning in general. You know, if we can hit the home run here, which I think you are, we can impact every one of those programs. And so keep it up.
Oh, thank you. Thank you all.
Let's move on to the JWB annual dashboard. Karen Bogus, Megan Seals, and also Laura Krogh-Brock to provide us with this information.
So I'm just going to say, how do you follow that one? But anyway, I'll let Megan.
I was going to say the same thing. We need to talk about the agenda lineup. I don't know, put in data after that doesn't sound like a good idea, but we're going to get through this. I know Karen Bogus is on the agenda, but she's going to take a back seat today and is here to help support us. Good morning. My name's Megan Seals. I'm the Senior Manager of Performance and Evaluation at JWB, and today I'll be co-presenting with Laura Krogh-Brock, our Chief Financial Officer, on the JWB Annual Dashboard. This dashboard, first I'm going to go over a little background just as a refresher, and then I'll go through each strategic result area, and then I'm hand it over to Laura Krogh-Brock to go over to the financials, as she's definitely the expert. So this dashboard was created about 2 years ago, and just to remind everyone the intent, it's a high-level dashboard that is for us to trend our metrics in each strategic result area. As you know, we will continue to come to the board month after month with more in-depth presentations on our performance in specific program areas and in specific result areas. So this isn't it, but this is a high picture that we use to track how our progress is going. Thank you, Shannon. So there's a couple things that I would like to cover before we get started. You'll notice that we have 6 strategic result areas, and they are not all included up here. I want to speak to why before we go into detail on each. The early childhood development area, as we know, is our newest focus area, and it's still under development. Dr. Barbara Morrison-Rodriguez and Dr. Gail Ingram is leading the charge to develop that area. What we anticipate is that as we progress with the newly funded programs you just awarded, we'll be able to come back to the board in next fall with some preliminary metrics for this area. The other area that is not included is our organizational capacity. In that area, Linda Leedy, our Chief Administration Officer, continues to bring updates to the board regularly on our progress of our strategic plan. So that's where we provide that information regularly. So here you'll notice that the time period of the dashboard reflects 2018 to 2021, and in some areas we are at the point where we have 2022 data available. We've included the most recent data we have available to you because we always want to give the most recent information to the board. I would be remiss if I did not mention a little thing that has occurred during this time period between 2020, 21, and still ongoing, and that's COVID-19. All of our children, all of us, our families, and our providers have been significantly impacted by that. And what we do know is that we're seeing these impacts ongoing in our results. We're continuing to monitor this. I think the big question is this short-term, long-term, we're learning. So I just want to point that out as it's an overarching theme that you might hear me mention across all areas. So the next one. Okay, so school readiness. School readiness, the result area encompasses our programs such as our early learning centers, early learning support services like the HIPPY program, and our school readiness match dollars, to name a few. In this area, we use the STARS early literacy assessment that is administered by the school district at the first 30 days of kindergarten for students. As you can see by demonstrated in the chart, we had a 1% backslide from FY20 to FY21 in the school readiness area. While we never want to see a backslide, what we do know is that this is a minimal loss compared to the impacts that we've seen across the nation for students. Also, it's important to note that for FY21, this test would have been administered in August 2021. Sorry, lots of dates. And we know during that period that our early learning centers, our school readiness programs were significantly impacted and challenged by workforce issues, student attendance, and new behavioral issues they were seeing for the first time. Our demographics for our population, just to give you an idea, in these programs is over 60% participants living in a low or very low opportunity area. As we move forward, we know that we have a lot of work to do to meet that target of 90%, obviously. Thank you. So up next, we have school success. School success result area makes up programs such as our out-of-school time, promise time, school prevention and intervention programs such as truancy, mentoring, our health clinics, to name a few. This result area, we have used in the past years the Florida State Assessment, which is also known as FSA, and we use the English language arts measure and the math measure for proficiency. And you'll see English language arts is referred to as ELA on the chart. Here we see that, again, we had a 2% backslide in math from 39% to 37%, but we were able to hold steady in ELA at 33%. The results of ELA hopefully indicate that there may be some stability on the horizon and COVID rebound, but only time will tell if we can see if this is a trend backed up. Again here, this is a common theme, we have more work to do, right? But prior to COVID, we did see that we were trending in the right direction. Once that the pandemic really hit, there was we've kind of held steady, which is a great thing to point out when we know that our participants being in very low or low opportunity areas are the most vulnerable to these impacts. So as some of you in the room might know, FSA has been replaced, and you're probably thinking, well, what are we gonna do now? The FSA was replaced with what is called the Florida Assessment of Student Thinking, and that's short for, also known as FAST. This is designed to be a progressive monitoring tool throughout the year that measures students on specific benchmarks. It's important moving forward that we align our measurement with the school districts. And so we were working closely with their research team to identify the most appropriate way to measure this focus area moving forward and how we can possibly trend data over the past years comparing the new assessment tool. The other thing that I'd like to point out is that we see that there's a consistent decline in our math scores for our JWB participants. We'd like to start some discussions regarding direct supports related to numeracy, given that this is a trend that we do not think is related just to COVID. Okay, so strengthening community. Sorry, did we skip one? Oh, nope, sorry. Okay, Strengthening community. In this area, we focus on our hunger initiative. This is where we distribute meals to our children in the community. The initiative has been in place since 2015, and at this time has over 50 partner agencies across the county. Prior to the pandemic, this was already in place, so it gave us a unique opportunity to ramp up and respond to the increased needs that the pandemic had increased. If you look at the chart, you'll see year over year, we've continued to increase our meals, with FY22 really skyrocketing. And those are efforts to respond to that increased need. This huge jump is a direct result to our expanding our contract with St. Pete Free Clinic, who is here today, at $1.5 million last year to $2.8 million. This supplements food banks and pantries. They're now serving a record number of families as responding to the economic challenges that significantly impacts our families. Thank you. So the prevention of child abuse and neglect is our final focus area. And this area includes programs such as our mental health and behavioral supports, our respite programs, home visiting programs. In this strategic result area, our goal is just that we have no verified cases of abuse or neglect during services or 12 months after services. As you can see, our participants have held steady for several years. However, I think a lot of us in the room are aware that our county level data is the second highest for verified abuse in the state of Florida. So what this tells us is we, again, know our services work. It's reaching those high-risk families that is continually the challenge. We've done a couple things to expand our reach to these families, and that's expand eligibility, increase access for home visiting services, build relationships with the new lead community-based care. And as you've heard about recently, our fatherhood initiative and grand families efforts could help reach these populations. In addition, this area has also struggled with workforce challenges. We know, as Karen mentioned, we're just now receiving feedback on our first wave of workforce funds, and the providers are reporting very positive preliminary feedback. This portfolio, it will be included in the second wave of workforce funds, so we hope to see that will help stabilize their recruitment and turnover in addition. So I'm going to turn it over to Laura Kruger-Brock, who is going to go over the financials, and then we'll take questions.
Thank you. So we just selected a few items to discuss today. One of them has to do with the percentage, the target rate of our administrative percentage as a percentage of expenditures and fund balance. Our target is 10%. We want to stay below that. And this chart is demonstrating that we're at 6%. I did want to point out that the numbers from fiscal 18 to 21 are audited numbers. Therefore, they're so noted with the asterisk. 22 is an estimated number based on our preliminary close of the books, and we're currently undergoing the audit. I point that out because when you look at the orange bar, that's the percentage of fund balance to total expenditures. And so our target for that is 25%. So we want to have a cushion of 25%. And we've had this discussion many board meetings, how that number has been increasing and rising. So as you see from fiscal 21 to 22 estimate, that it's pretty much the same. It was 65% a year ago and 67%. And I point that out and remind you that fiscal 22, we did see an increase in total revenues, property taxes of $5.4 million. So by having an increase in revenues to that pool, we were able to spend more on the program spending. So our program spending was greater this fiscal 22 estimate by $5.8 million. So because of that, but the more money we got from the ad valorem revenues, and then the spending was higher. So we're working at it. It's just so that kind of keeps us pretty much stable. But with the recent approval of the new 10 programs that we'll be implementing and the dollar amounts that have been earmarked for those programs, we'll definitely be seeing that we'll be spending more. The other thing I point out in that regard is with 10 new programs, that means those programs will all be assigned a financial analyst, a program consultant, a program evaluator, and we're already looking at workloads that all of these employees have. So we're trying to monitor that as well because our target for administrative is 10% and we're at 6%. But I know that those staff are working very hard, and they're happy to see all these new programs, don't get me wrong, but all of a sudden they're like, well, how many am I going to get? You know, how many? I already have 20 that I'm dealing with, and now I'm going to get 5 more. So we're trying to stay positive in that respect. So after the approval today, we will be having meetings to determine who's going to be getting each program, and then we know the second wave is right behind us with school success and school readiness. So we are trying to be very cognizant of that as well. But yeah, we'll answer any questions.
Just one comment I would have is, or first a question and a comment. If you go back to the slide that shows the increase in the need for feeding, which we are now at over 5.6 million, are we seeing that trending up?
Yes, I think with the impacts of the economic status right now, we are seeing the need trend up. And I see Beth lighting up. So I think that time will tell as we look at how COVID moves through. We have to wait till we have more data to see if the trend holds steady or if we start to level out as assistance has rolled through and those things. Beth?
Yeah, I would agree with Megan's assessment that all of those agencies who have traditionally been providing food have seen their numbers go up and up and up, and thinking that as COVID crested, they would see those numbers go down. That hasn't happened. You've got other economic factors, housing being, all but unaffordable for a significant number of people, inflation outpacing wages, all have that impact. The other thing I would just mention is in January or February, not sure which, we're going to come back with a report on the newest ALICE report that comes from the United Way, and also we'll also hear from the free clinic as folks who were kind of on the front lines in seeing people's financial needs, as well as FSI, who also see that from, so kind of an overall look at what's going on in the county. So we will be coming back with more data. We think the newest ALICE report is going to be out in January or February, so we want to wait until the new one is out and has been absorbed by the United Way folks to be able to come and talk about it.
Okay, so with that, I just want to thank all the participating partners with JWB for doing a stellar job, for stepping up and helping those in need. And I won't get political, so I think that there are a lot of things that need to be done to correct this over the time, and economics is controlled by those that have the impact to control it. So I would just say again, thank you for all the hard work that you've done. All right, let's move on to the Chief Executive Officer's report.
Thank you. Well, we've talked, and you've just approved the new strategically aligned programs this first pass. And we mentioned a lot of people, but I want to make sure I take the opportunity to acknowledge extraordinary efforts across the organization. Our Budget, Accounting, and Program Finance Department, led by JWB CFO Laura Brock, and Senior Manager for Budget and Business Services Diana Caro, as it relates to all of this program. And I'm going to do a special shout out to Laura Hayes, who kind of owned this process. Needless to say, there were people across the organization and from the community who assisted us at all the various stages of this. So thank you to them. That includes program leads for each strategic result area. Early childhood development is Gail Ingram. If you're in the room, raise your hand. Yay. And school readiness, Dr. Chen Fan, who you've seen present here before. School success, Joanne Delernia. Prevention of child abuse and neglect, Jennifer Artiaga. See you. And strengthening community, Danielle Hens. So all of these folks worked extra amounts to make those happen. And Diana, you walked out of the room and I said something nice about you. You heard me, okay, good. Then a few other things. This evening, there is another in a series of Growing Hope Youth Suicide Prevention Town Hall events, and this one will take place at the SPC Clearwater campus from 6:30 to 8:15 p.m., and we have nearly 100 folks registered. This was supposed to have occurred when the hurricane came through, so we had to reschedule, and it's looking like it'll be well attended. The keynote speaker will be Chaplain Milton Smith, founder and CEO and president of the All First Responders Matter Foundation. JWB member Division Chief Jim Milliken will give closing remarks tonight, so thank you for doing that. The event is part of an ongoing series of community conversations sponsored by JWB's Children's Mental Health Initiative, U.S. College of Public Health, NAMI Pinellas, and Zero Suicide Partners of Pinellas. I'm happy to tell you that we have finally come to get a good date for the Sleep Baby Safely New Year's press event. We have wanted to announce, along with the Florida Department of Health, the expansion of that program across the state, and it's, you know, we were shooting for earlier in the year, but now we're going to play like we always meant it was going to be in January with the new baby, you know, baby New Year sort of theme. So in collaboration with Dr. Cho and our local Florida Department of Health, JWB will be hosting that press event here on Wednesday, January 4th, 2023, from 9:30 to 10:30 a.m. right here in this room, our boardroom, to announce the statewide replication of JWB's Sleep Baby Safely campaign. As I think I've shared with you before, Dr. Cho is very humble, but I'm pretty sure he was instrumental in sharing this campaign as a best practice with the Florida Department of Health, who then incorporated it in their current year budget to extend to other counties. This is a best practice initiative. It's responsible for saving dozens of babies' lives, both here in Pinellas and in Duval counties. And Dr. Cho successfully advocated for statewide Florida Department of Health funding to replicate this in 8 more counties across the state. And that's what we will be announcing and being, you know, together. So we will be urging parents and caregivers with this Baby New Year theme to take a New Year's resolution or pledge to sleep their babies safely. You can tell this is April and Jen's world. This is not my creative world, but it always works well when they do it. So invitations to our board and key Sleep Baby Safely campaign partners will go out next week, and the Juvenile Welfare Board is working in concert with the Florida Department of Health's communication teams to work collaboratively to promote and host this event. It's just something we're very proud of, and it matters. Planning efforts continue for this year's JWB Children's Summit that will take place on Friday, January 27th, 2023, from 8:30 to 10 a.m. at the St. Pete College Seminole campus. You may remember this is a smaller event really tied to program leaders and community leaders. Our theme is then our much larger event later in April. Our theme is Imagine, and the summit will feature an enlightened, thought-provoking program about what the future might hold for our children and families as we navigate this post-COVID world. and look forward to JWB's next 75 years. So we've secured keynote speaker, futurist, and economist, Dr. Sean Snaith, who will share his forecasting insights on the impending recession, inflation, labor markets, housing, and more, and discuss how we as a community can position ourselves for future growth. Dr. Snaith is the director of the University of Central Florida's Institute for Economic Forecasting and is nationally recognized economist in the field of business and economic forecasting. And he's won multiple awards for his work and for his ability within the media and within talks to translate very complex material into something that's digestible and even entertaining. So the last thing I would mention to you is that JWB continues to work in support of the City of Clearwater to assist displaced Clearwater families in light of the Capri Mobile Home Park closing, which will actually close, or the last day will be March 14th, 2023. We understand that an estimated 90 households will be displaced, and among those there are 88 students, not necessarily 88 out of the 90 homes, but 88 students across all of those. This is similar to a coordinated effort that occurred in 2019 when nearby Southern Comfort Mobile Home Park closed, but it's more challenging this time. Then there was an adjacent mobile home park to which many of the residents could move. Capri, the one closing now, was that nearby mobile home park. And we all know the affordable housing market is much more constrained now than it was in 2019. So again, the City of Clearwater is leading this effort. We participate, and when there are appropriate places that FSI can assist, it's sort of a strike force that can make things happen fairly quickly, and FSI is a part of that. I also want to mention that we had our staff appreciation event on November 30th at Eagle Lake Park in Largo, and our theme was Happy Together, and by golly, people really were happy together. People really had a great time, and we had team building activities, a lot of open time for social time. We focused on positive mental health and staff well-being. We had 62 of our staff in attendance, and the event just got rave reviews from our staff. And Linda, you want to remind me who should be thanked for that?
Jen Dodd and Rebecca Teeter were our co-chairs, but they recruited staff from all over the organization, different departments, and it was really, truly a great planning team, worked really well together. And some of our staff whose job at JWB isn't super creative, volunteered, and they were able to express their creativity with this work, and everybody had a good time. We had trivia, both a trivia game that was very competitive in some corners, and not in others. And we also had some trivia about JWB staff members, so we learned more about each other, and a kudo board where you just go and say something nice about somebody that maybe you needed to say. So it was just very positive all the way around. Thanks.
Any comments or questions? I'm moving on then to the information items you have in front of you. Are there any questions or comments on the information items? Or things that need to be addressed? Seeing none. Open agenda. Do we have any comments?
We have one card. It's from the Early Childhood Development, it's about the Early Childhood Development Award, and it is the Healthy Start Coalition of Pinellas County. Mary Jo Plews would like to speak.
Welcome.
Now for the record. I'm Mary Jo Plews. I'm the Executive Director of the Healthy Start Coalition here in Pinellas. And on behalf of the coalition and the about 7,200 or so babies that are born every year in Pinellas, we want to express our gratitude for these awards today. I knew this was going to happen. Michelle, don't look at me. it really will further our mutual goals of giving every baby a healthy start and strengthening children and families in our community. I'd really like to extend our gratitude to Beth, her executive team, and all the evaluation team members and the staff for a professional, thoughtful, and thorough process that really was focused on addressing inclusion, addressing unmet gaps, and promoting inclusion. I think I repeated myself there, didn't I? But again, we are very grateful for this additional support, and we're excited to begin.
Congratulations on winning the award. And we look forward to continuing to develop our relationships and expand them, specifically with those babies. Moving on now to October, November anniversaries. Mr. Butler?
Yes. Okay, it's been a while since I've had this opportunity, so I'll try not to butcher this up too bad. Rebecca Teeter, 1 year. Gail Kellen Christensen, 6 years. Melissa Orquist, 8 years. Dr. Quinn Fan, 11 years. Alyssa Bowers, 1 year. And Glory Rosario, 1 year. And that's it.
Okay, so before we adjourn, I'd like to wish everyone a very happy holidays and hopefully a very prosperous and healthy new year. Look forward to seeing you in the new year. Meeting is adjourned.
Wait until